And I understand the revolution begins at the polls in November, but I'm trying to think that and hope that we can somehow repeal that. I'd like to ask you your thoughts on that. And then secondly, where's the outrage with all the czars, that have been brought in without Senate approval? And not that that's any great shakes these days either. Okay, but I'm really afraid for our country and the security of it and the national security. These numbskulls who have no brains whatsoever, or the inmates are running the asylum, and I'm very afraid for our country at this stage of the game.
Well, I have to tell you, when you look at the healthcare legislation, it will be really hard to repeal it because you're going to need a 2/3 majority override to make that happen. So, what really you need to look at is the power of the purse string lies in Congress. So it is about not funding a lot of these things. And you're right, Tim, you talk about some things that got snuck in there. How many people understand that now all of a sudden all college education loans must go through the government? Now what does that have to do with healthcare? But that's one of those amendments in there. And that is why when I think, one of the critical things we need to have happen, we need to have bills that are clean. Not with all this pork, not with all of these amendments that are hung on. The hate crimes legislation was attached to a defense appropriation. Every time the defense appropriation bill comes along, they want to hang something on it that they know is not going to get passed, and they force people to say, well, I can't, vote against the troops, and the next thing you know, something heinous gets through. So you're right, we've got to look at these czars because it is totally unconstitutional. Now, let's face it, there have been other presidents that have had czars, but that was over the course of a 4 to 8 year period. I mean, some of these people that we have put in our federal government that answer to no one but, I guess, the president, this is very scary, some of the policies of these individuals. And I think that if anything, there should be some type of congressional hearings that make these people come forward and respond to some of these policies that have come back from their past. Because I think that's what you want to know. It's the responsibility. So I think, once again, those are the type of things that you have to have. And, the best and the brightest of us is not in Washington, D.C. I'm just going to say it. I am. I think, and it takes me back to a quote from Plato that says, one of the penalties for refusing to participate in politics is that you will be governed by your inferiors. And that's what we have. In 2008, Congress had an approval rating of about 21, 22%. 91% of incumbents went back. It's Pavlovian. If you continue to reward bad behavior, you get more bad behavior. So the question really is not, Tim, Colonel West, what are you going to do? The question really is, what are you all going to do? Will you finally send the message? Because they still don't believe it's going to happen. They really don't. And even if it does happen, you can't then go back and hit the snooze button on your alarm clock. You got to stay engaged. Because we can never afford for our country to get in the position that it is in right now. Never, ever again. So that's the critical part. Good evening.
Over the past 20 years, our country has experienced a demographic change, which I believe is probably unprecedented in a democratic society, short of invasion or war. It appears that our elite are trying to elect new people and are succeeding at it. These undocumented Democrats are expanding at a rate that is absolutely frightening. You alluded to Obama's failure to do anything about it. Quite the opposite. Arizona is attempting to secure the border, while our federal government is filing suit against the sovereign state of Arizona. What would you as a congressman do to stem the tide? We talk about the increase of entitlements. Demographics is destiny. We don't get a handle on this real soon.
You're absolutely right. If you go back to 1986, you know, President Reagan granted amnesty to what he thought was 1 million, ended up being, I guess, 2 to 3 million, and now we don't know what it is because they never did what they were supposed to do, secure the borders and enforce our laws. So once again, if we come back and say we're going to have this comprehensive immigration reform, which means amnesty, without solving the problem, first of all, without stemming the tide, okay, you know, the ones that are here are just more going to come. The first thing that you have to do is what the state of Oklahoma did, I think it was last year, where they said no state-funded benefits go to illegal immigrants. So what ended up happening? They went to Texas and they went to Kansas. I mean, you know, if you're handing out the carrot, people are going to come here. But if you stop doing that, you know, it's very interesting when the administration says, well, we're doing great things because illegal immigration in this country is down 18%. Well, it's down 18% because there are no jobs. Okay, so they don't want to come here. And they're not able to come here and get all of the, you know, the extended benefits. Look, it's a multi-headed hydra. Illegal immigration affects your national security. You go to the Border Patrol website, there's a case, and people thought when I was saying this last year, I was, you know, like out to lunch. But it's called OTMs, other than Mexicans. There are people that are coming to this country that don't mean us good. They're finding prayer rugs. They're finding dictionaries to translate Arabic to Spanish to English. We already know that Al-Qaeda and Hezbollah are paying the Mexican drug cartels to bring people into this country. Well, okay, Dearborn Mission. But then you also have, it's an economic issue because the American taxpayer are picking up that burden. I mean, a lot of it, Social Security. How can anyone justify Social Security going to a person that's here illegally? You know, education. Look at what it does into our school system. Look what it does to our healthcare systems. I mean, up in Martin County, we had the hospital that was going on. And down in Miami-Dade, we have Jackson Memorial. And then it's a local criminality issue. You're starting to see that in Jupiter. You're starting to see that in Lake Worth. You know, what I can understand, the operative word is illegal.
Yes, sir.
Why can't, I mean, that's it. End of discussion. And someone, as you said, Tim, someone has to be able to stand up and say, I don't get this argument. The Constitution says in Article 1, Section 8, it's about repelling invasion. The Constitution says in Article 1, Section 10, that the federal government is supposed to protect a state from invasions, but if in imminent danger, the state has a right, without delay, to take care of that issue. In Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution, the exact same thing. And don't forget the 10th Amendment. This is a federal system. Those enumerated rights that are not taken by the federal government go down to the state and to the individual. And the people in Arizona say this is what they want. And so this is politics, once again, to expand that demographic. Because if that happens, then it's not 50%, it's 45 taking care of 55. And it's over in this country.
Would you support repealing the 14th Amendment?
You know, no, it's not about repealing the 14th Amendment. I think what we need to do is you know, the 14th Amendment was made so that the children of slaves could be citizens. Now, all of a sudden, the smart guys that are lawyers have taken it to this thing where anybody that comes here in the United States of America can then, you know, have a child as a citizen. It is not about repealing the 14th Amendment because there's due process and equal protection, but it is about saying that this policy of anchor babies is over. That's what we have to do.
Talked a lot tonight about financial responsibility, and obviously the federal government is living way beyond their financial responsibility. What would you do, and where do you stand on the financial responsibility for the federal government? What would you do?
Well, I got to tell you,
where do you start?
The first thing is
Say no.
Get a budget. How many people realize the federal haven't even passed the budget? So how many of you all can, I mean, you know, Angela beats me up about this all the time. You stop writing checks, you don't even know what's in there. You know, you can't run a household like that, okay? So it is not just having a budget, but then we need to have a balanced budget amendment that says, you know, you must stay within the means of this country. You know, right now, it's whatever they feel that they want. And that's not how you can run a business. That's not how you can run a household. Remember that the federal government is the only